real conversations, and some hard truths. Gangs, drugs, and guns. Giving a voice to those willing to sacrifice. We have stories that need to be told. We have lessons that need to be taught. Protect and serve. Welcome to The Quiet Professional. Welcome back, everyone. I'm your host, Nathan Romas. Today, we're doing something a little bit different, so I hope you like it. I have retired Sergeant Ben Klick back in studio. Ben's previous visit on the podcast can be found on episode 16. We covered a few of the topics we will talk about today. However, the prior episode was more broadly based. And in lead up to Remembrance Day, we thought we'd do a more in-depth discussion about service, what it means, and why it's important. So we're going to delve more into Ben's experiences in service through the military. We will talk about the training he took part in, the experiences in deployments and the battlefield, the people he met, worked with, and lost. And we will look at the impacts, both mental and physical, of service. So welcome, Ben.
Hey, thanks very much, Nathan. Yeah, thanks for what you do and for having me back.
Yeah, so I'm glad we could get you back in so quick. Today, the previous episode we had talked about basically your whole lifespan. We covered everything from growing up to military to your current job where you help people learn how to shoot a rifle. And this is going to be much more focused on the service and the people that you were involved with and a lot about your experience. So maybe we'll start at just why you got into the military for those who maybe haven't heard the previous episode.
Yeah, sure, you bet. It was 1985, fresh out of high school. I joined the Canadian Forces to go kill communists because it was the Cold War. And I stayed for just under 20 years, served with the Princess Patricia's Canadian Light Infantry, and predominantly a lot of my time was with the Canadian Airborne Regiment with 2 Commando and a couple other subunits within that. And retired in 2004 and spent my days teaching mental performance and shooting performance. I was, in 1985, I was just another farm boy looking for an excitement off the farm. I always joke that I joined the infantry to get away from the farm so I didn't have to dig holes or string wire. And to my shock, after 12 weeks of Welcome to the Army training in Cornwallis, Nova Scotia, kind of boot camp you would expect, the how to salute, how to march, how the Army works, first aid, that kind of stuff. I went off for 6 fun-filled months in sunny Wainwright, Alberta for a winter and spent a lot of time digging holes and stringing wire. Learned the basic skills of an infantryman. Spent just over a year or 2 in the 1st Battalion PPCLI down in Calgary. Got the opportunity to be on the Army biathlon team, skiing and shooting, because that looked like a lot of fun, fitness and shooting. And progressed through reconnaissance, learned to fall out of airplanes in 87 or 88, and then went to the Canadian Airborne Regiment for the next 7 years.
What does going up in an airplane for the first time look like? Like when you want to jump out of it, I should say.
I'd like to say it's some spiritual or psychic journey, but the reality is it was. It's not that it's something you do when you're super scared. It's just that we had been so extensively trained, and I think it's also part of my character that if I'm trained that way, I expect that's what's going to happen, and I'm going to stand in a door. I'm going to fall out. Gravity going to do its thing, and it'll turn out all right. And the first time and the last time I did it with the military was kind of the same, mentally focused, but trusting in the people around me that they knew what they were doing. And I was able to do what I was going to do. And like I say, I was never one of the guys that was tortured, stayed up all night the night before jump and worried about it. Because I had an expectation of what was going to happen. And by and large, that's exactly what happened, whether it was round parachute or later on jumping higher altitudes of the square chute.
You don't get yourself too worked up. You don't dwell on it too much.
No, no, 21-year-old me was not a deep thinker by any stretch of the imagination. So it was on a lot on blind faith, I think.
So when you went to the military, did you have a lot of support from family, friends back home?
I did. And we have to remember this support came in the mail every couple of weeks and it had a stamp and it was a couple pages long.
Yeah.
The texts were kind of slow at the time. I came from a strong military background and yet was never felt pressured. And my father later told me that they explicitly never pressured me to join the military.
Mm-hmm.
And yet there it went. So lots of support, but not a lot of pressure.
And one thing you mentioned in the prior visit here was that your grandfather was in the armor division, and that was in World War II.
Yeah.
Did he ever tell you any experiences about that maybe kind of led to you going into the military or affected your decision what you did in the military?
Yes and no. He spoke very little about it generally. Spoke almost nothing about it before I joined the military. His sole words or advice were, "Don't go armored." Mm-hmm. He was an armored guy, but he during training discovered he was claustrophobic. So they gave him the really safe job of driving trucks full of ammunition and fuel around behind the tanks. One hilltop behind the vehicles. Later on, after a few years in the military, very slowly, after a few years of me being in the military, very slowly, small stories would come out from time to time. And one of the reasons he wanted me to not be armored because the survival rate was extremely low in his unit. His unit was more than 70% casualties in the first engagement. Wow. Literally, he was able to hop from tank to tank that was destroyed in the battlefield, and he had to deal with the human remains of his friends immediately after the battlefield. So not a big fan of me going into tanks.
Yeah.
But there was certainly a few stories that were inspiring and shaped my attitudes and beliefs. I am not a big believer, and I will actively advocate against elitism. I believe that everybody that is out there has a role, has a job, and is just as important. Mm-hmm. And my grandfather only spoke of it once or twice, but he was behind the tanks, one or two, what they call a tactical bound. So the F1 or the fighting echelon is the immediate needs of the tanks. There's a handful of medics, some ammo trucks and fuel trucks, and my grandfather's in one of them. And as battle swirled around, they were no longer behind they were behind their tanks, but the line had moved around them and was flanking them. Mm-hmm. And it was my grandfather's courage that prevented their tanks from being flanked and engaged and destroyed. And it was his humble service and his humble attitude towards what he did that kind of shaped my attitudes that, like, everybody's real. Mm-hmm. I think I can't remember if I mentioned it last time, but I'll repeat it now. I was sitting overseas in a tent, and I was in charge of the sniper section. And I met an old friend who was with our special operations group, and he was in charge of that. And we were sitting there, and we discovered that we had this similar attitude against elitism and how it could be corrosive and isolating. And some poor dude who drove the blue rocket cleaner truck, the big hydrovac sucker truck that had to come around and clean out all the portable outhouses. He came around and was doing his work, and I think I commented to Bucky, the other guy, I said, "Yeah, take away the special operations group, the snipers, and the guy who drives that truck, and see which one they want back first."
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
he's the most necessary dude on the bunch. So,
well, even like you're mentioning with your grandfather's story too, you take a constable off the street here, and there's 6-7 support personnel that you have to call to get this form sent to you, or call to get approval for some other thing. So yeah, it takes a team to basically make anything effective.
Absolutely. So, yeah. And it's in any organization, police, military, industry, medical, you often see organizational charts, and they'll have Colonel such and such at the top, and then the majors, and then the captains, and further down the sergeants, and then God forbid all the million little privates on the bottom. And I learned to flip that chart.
Mhm.
And I put the frontline officer, the private soldier, the frontline healthcare worker, you put them at the top, because the truth is all those people who are now below them are there to support.
Yeah.
The only reason a colonel exists is ultimately for some 18-year-old private with a pointy knife on the end of a short rifle
Mhm.
to be out there doing his work.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter how high speed, low drag we are. Ultimately, it's the constable on patrol. It's the soldier on the wire that we're there to enable and support.
So what you said, you were in the military in 1985.
Mhm.
You went to Wainwright for 6 months stint, and then you were in jump school.
I was lucky enough to be in Calgary, which was a fabulous place to be, especially around the Olympics. 88 hit. I was on a biathlon team. We got front row access right in the pits with a lot of the sports. So it was a great place as a young man to be. And it's also expanding my knowledge and capabilities, working more with radios, getting into the stuff that I thought was the most exciting, which was the reconnaissance side.
Yeah.
Less digging, more sneaking around.
I know that the Olympics is often used as a political event,
Mm-hmm.
and back around the World War II,
Mm-hmm.
there was Germany was in full force at that time, and there's a lot of history around the Olympics and just all the countries that were competing in there. What was it like in the 80s? Do you remember anything from, was there certain hostility toward Russian people?
That's a great question. In the Olympics previous, it was 88, and it was a Winter Olympics, which is smaller, and I don't think it's as, I'm going to guess, and I'm only guessing, it's not as politically sensitive. There had been earlier boycotts for those who weren't around. There was one big one where the Russians boycotted the Olympics, and there was another one where the Americans completely did, which of course limited the level of competition. But in 88, it was everybody there. It was a great time. It just seemed to be a big, fabulous party to 19-year-old me. And famously, like the Jamaican bobsled team was there, and a guy named Eddie the Eagle. Now, both these groups were wildly popular in the press because they were the every person.
Mm-hmm.
These weren't really professional athletes. Eddie the Eagle was a British ski jumper, and Eddie the Eagle had never actually ski jumped, but somehow managed to find his way onto the slopes in Calgary and crashed and burned spectacularly. And the Jamaican bobsled team, they'd started in a sport similar to push karting, where they push the carts. So it's very similar to the start of what I imagine the start of a bobsled race is. And they came here, and they both Eddie the Eagle and the Jamaican bobsled team, I think, embodied the spirit of the enthusiastic amateur, and it brought every person into the Olympics.
Well, they have movies made after.
Absolutely.
So you have Cool Runnings.
Cool Runnings.
And I don't know what Eddie's movie was called.
Yeah, but there was one made.
It was maybe 10 years ago it came out.
Yeah.
So, so you go do a bit in the Olympics, and then where do you go from there?
As I mentioned, I learned to fall out of airplanes up here in Edmonton. I think we were jumping the week after the big, not hurricane, sorry, a tornado went through the trailer park in northeast Edmonton, and we were jumping in that kind of weather. Very quickly after that, I think it was that summer, I was posted to Petawawa, Ontario, to commando of the Canadian Airborne Regiment, which is about 150 people, all guys at the time, who were selected from PPCLI to go and do what we'd now call Tier 2 direct action. Raids, ambushes, airfield seizures, beachhead seizures, that kind of stuff.
Is that in buildup for something, or is it just part of your normal training?
No, the posting means that it's like getting transferred from one division to another. So I've been living in Calgary, working in one unit, the 1st Battalion of the Regular Infantry, PPCLI, and now I was being transferred to the Canadian Airborne Regiment, which, again, we didn't have special operations. It was just us making it up as we go along. And as I said, it was mainly raids, ambushes, airfield seizures. The mandate for the Airborne Regiment varied at times, and it was never terribly clear. There were certain things, mass casualty in the Arctic. For example, an aircraft crashed, a jetliner crashes in the Arctic. Our search and rescue technicians are fabulous, but there ain't that many of them. So a follow-on force of 150 of us might join them and set up tents and keep people warm and evacuate them. That was one clear function. In the context of the Cold War, we were a quick reaction group so that Canada could project force as part of a larger NATO coalition. We could be the Canadian element dropping in ahead of or behind other units in a traditional airborne role, doing direct action, whether it was to seize a bridge or blow up an airfield or whatever strategically important objective had to be taken.
Where was, at that time, where was Canada, I'll say, situated in amongst the NATO forces, like as for capability and readiness? Like, it's a pretty big group, but, we're not usually known as the tip of the spear on a lot of things.
With the exception of World War II, where I remind people that we stood amongst the world giants. On Juno Beach, it was one of 5 beaches invading Europe, and 2 of them were the old superpower Britain. 2 of them were the new superpower England, and the 5th one was Canada. It could have been anybody, but they chose Canada. So we were certainly standing on a world stage then. We also had the 3rd largest Navy in the world at the end of World War II. Fast forward to the 80s, and not so much. We like to think we're a big deal nationally. I'm talking, I think, in the Canadian, and I'm projecting my own desires maybe, but in the Canadian consciousness, we think that we're militarily important, that we're a world player, and we're just not. I was on one course with a couple American Special Forces guys came up, and when they realized that there were more special operations guys in the U.S. than there were in the entire Canadian Army, Navy, and Air Force.
Oh, wow.
It was like, oh man, we should invade you guys. We're like, yeah, let's just wait. 2 months later, it was mid-November, we're freezing ourselves in a frozen water-filled hole. And he's like, yeah, no, we're not invading. So I think we overstate our importance, and we get a lot of political truck and trade off of that. We earn our way to a seat at the big table because we're the Americans' cousins. And, we have in the past put boots on the ground, and that matters. In the first Gulf War, we didn't put boots on the ground. And there's a famous journalist giving a speech to us once, and he said he was in the airport during the first Gulf War, and he was in Florida, and there was a T-shirt that said Coalition of the Willing, and it had all the flags of the nations that joined in. Now, we did send some medics, the whole field hospital, like a MASH unit, and they stayed in Saudi or Qatar, Bahrain. They didn't go to the actual war. We sent a couple ships. They stayed away from the war. We sent CF-18 fighter jets, which sadly we still have, and they flew around Saudi Arabia because they were technically incapable of communicating with the other coalition partners.
The technology.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
And we lacked the political will. So they flew in circles over Saudi Arabia, and I think they fired an air-to-air missile at a fishing boat and missed. True story. And so we like to think we're doing a lot up to that point. And that's not to denigrate the sacrifice or the willingness of the service of those who went. So I'll pull back from that. But at a political level, we like to make a show of it.
Yeah.
You can contrast that with the very real sacrifice of the former Yugoslavia throughout the 90s. Other places like we went Somalia, and then certainly Afghanistan, and then present-day Iraq and a few other places we got people around the world.
Well, it gets me thinking, something we mentioned in the last time you were here was, and this kind of goes back to the training aspect, but one of the things he says is that you come out thinking that you're the finest fighting machine.
Absolutely.
And it got me thinking about, they say this in the police service too, not fighting machine, but just, something to the effect of we're the best police service and everybody comes to us and everybody wants to be us and see how we do everything. And then I was thinking, is that really a good mentality to have? And considering I had just gone through Depot and did 6 months there. Yeah. And then I came here about a year and a half-ish, 2 years later. and see the training here, and they're saying the exact same thing. It's like,
there's a lot of doors that say the finest officers in the world walk through these doors.
Yeah. You see it with sports teams too. And so I just was kind of thinking, I wonder if that's really applicable, or if it's something good to say, and what exactly they're trying to generate out of stating that.
Yeah. Well, I think it's valuable, and I think it's the right thing to do. I just had the opportunity to watch one day of the Canadian or North American police dog finals down in Camrose a couple of weeks ago.
Mm-hmm.
Man, you guys kicked ass.
Yeah.
Like in that case in particular, I can state with 100% confidence, you guys were head and shoulders above everybody else.
Mm-hmm.
Like cold, wasn't even a question. But I think every organization that places their people in risk and danger owes an obligation to send them out the door, not only with the best training, but also understanding that they have the best training.
Mm-hmm.
But the second part's predicated on the first.
Yeah.
And looking back at my training as a private soldier in 1985, 1986, I see now how woefully inadequate it was. And it boils down to the same problem that we had, why we have jet fighters with no radios that work, or why we're still flying the jet fighters that we shouldn't be anymore. It's a political and a national willing. We have this delusion that we're important on the military world stage, that we're relevant. Mexico has a bigger army. So we don't demand that we invest in it,
mm-hmm.
to the point, frankly, of criminal negligence. In 1999, I was carrying a radio that, no kidding, was the same one you see in Vietnam War movies from the late 50s, early 60s.
Really?
That's when that radio was made. 1953, the Canadian Army in Germany had some of the best equipment in the world, and I was still using it in the mid-'80s. So that persists. The CF-18s that fly around now were around in the 80s.
Mm-hmm.
When I was around in the 80s, so that was 40 years ago. When I was around in the 80s, 40 years ago brings you to the end of World War II. So the P-51D Mustang and the Vought Corsair. That's how old. So it's like flying in World War II aircraft in the 80s. That's what we're flying now.
Yeah.
And it's a lack of national willingness to actually invest in our military. You know, famously, we say that we're going to do 4% of our gross domestic product. Domestic product invested in the military, I believe, is 4%, and we've never approached 2%.
Mm-hmm.
So at a national level, at a local level, I had hoped that we're equipping and training our officers to do the very, very necessary and very difficult work they do. And I live out in St. Albert, so I'm insulated. But I'm not 100% confident we are.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and I think a lot of people don't realize that just because you're funding the military, it's not funding the war machine. It's a ton of humanitarian work. People need help all around the world. People that can't help themselves or maybe don't have governments that'll help them. So sometimes you do need to go in and deal with stuff, which we'll get to kind of when you talk about Somalia, and what that whole situation looks like. So, I think people kind of lose sight of there's real wolves out there. There's real harm that can be done. And
evil's a thing.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. We definitely need to be prepared.
Yep.
So can you walk us through some of the rest of your training? So you're at Airborne, and then what happens from there?
The first few weeks of being the Airborne Regiment, there was a bit of delay for me. I kind of wandered around some empty buildings for a couple of weeks because the unit was actually on leave. They just got back from operations in Cyprus. So they were on holiday. But once they were back, we kicked off with what was called the Airborne Indoctrination course. And jump school teaches you how to fall out of an airplane. Airborne indoctrination teaches you what to do once you hit the ground. So you roll up your parachute. That's no big deal, but what do you do next? So how you gather together in groups. When do you have enough? When do you decide you have enough people? It teaches you how to do some basic leadership stuff, because you may suddenly be the guy in charge, because the guy in charge is in pieces out there, or his aircraft didn't make it. And then all the things that we do to make sure that we're physically, tactically, and mentally ready to go out and do things like climb out of subs and swim ashore and get a beach ready. to do a raid or an ambush out of helicopters. Like, how do you slide down? It's not just the nature of sliding down a rope, but like, who goes first? What do you do when you're on the ground? Who moves next? All these technical, tactical details. And it also, the airborne indoctrination course was designed to inculcate the culture and the mental preparedness that you need to do those kind of things.
So who's teaching these courses? Is it
ideally
hardened guys that have been through
reality
battles?
It's guys who've been there a whole 12 to 14 months longer than you have.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, the airborne went through many, many changes over the years, and when I was there, it was a 3-year deal. So the unit you actually belong to, for me, the PPCLI, they would basically loan you to the airborne for 3 years, and with the understanding you would come back. I managed to hide out there for about 7.5 until it was discovered. But the training was run. The airborne indoctrination course was run by older soldiers, typically with guys with 2 to 3 years experience, and it just prepared guys to do their job in a rifle commando, just being a sled dog with a rifle or a light machine gun and running around the woods. So
it's very interesting hearing that because, most of our media, we're exposed to American stuff. And then when you listen to the American guys who train around the same time and then they're preparing for the Gulf War, they're getting guys in there that are maybe a little long in tooth, but guys from the Vietnam era. So they've got some guys in there that have decades of experience and are real battle hardened, battle tested. And then to hear the opposite side of things with the Canadian military.
Well, it's true. Both militaries' experience is effervescent. It evaporates almost immediately. I was just a few weeks ago. I was down I was getting ready to go down to Dundurn, Saskatchewan to work with the basic sniper course, and the unit master sniper was telling me that we've got 0 snipers with Afghanistan experience, and so I start counting on my fingers and toes how many years it's been, and damn, it wasn't that long ago, but there are literally no snipers. Oh, sorry, there was one dude from the 1st Battalion who was a sniper, and he's now the unit master sniper. He was a basic sniper in Afghanistan near the end.
Oh.
So it goes like that.
Yeah.
So,
and the last major conflict that we were involved in would have been Korea.
Sure.
To a degree.
Yeah. No, I get you. Like Afghanistan, in frame of reference, Korea would have been definitely.
Yes, before Afghanistan I'm talking.
Yeah. When I was in 1985, absolutely. One of my very senior warrant officers was trained by guys who had been to Korea.
Yeah.
Yeah. So when he got in 25 years before me, his senior guys were combat veterans from Korea. But yeah, we have guys in current conflict zones, so yeah, it's still a thing.
So where do you go from? We left off at the indoctrination school.
Yeah, so I learned to fall out of airplanes and what to do when I hit the ground, and it was an odd time because we spent a lot of time training, and that's kind of the contrast between what I think military and police do. One of the many contrasts. We may face highly intense conflict for a very, very short period of time. I hope nobody's launching rockets and artillery at you guys yet, but where the police are exposed to what some people may think is lower level conflict. It does not have to be World War III for somebody to die. The 2 or 3 times that I came closest to dying were very minor things. And the stress and the danger that our officers are exposed to for years and years and years. It blows my mind that the men and women can still do that year after year and year. And it's unbelievable.
It shows you what the body can take.
Yeah. Well, we prepare our minds to take our bodies to places that they don't think they can go. But the continual exposure to low level, relatively low level, let's be honest, high level for most of us mere mortals, it's remarkable that human performance can continue that long.
Yeah.
For me in 2 Commando, there was a lot of, because of the political will of the time, we weren't involved in a lot of conflicts. We chose not to be. For example, the airborne should have gone to the first Gulf War. That's literally what we were for. Quick reaction, kick us out the door within 12 to 24 to 72 hours. We could have been right there side by side with the guys in Iraq. But we chose not to. Mm. And as I alluded to with the guy with the T-shirt, where I was going to finish that up is Gwen Dyer was his name. And Gwen was explaining that on that T-shirt was all the flags of the Coalition of the Willing. We weren't on the T-shirt.
Yeah.
Because we didn't have boots on the ground. Mm. We had jets flying around circles in Saudi Arabia. We had some ships sailing around the ocean nearby. We, enforcing a blockade legitimately. We had a surgical hospital in the sands of Saudi Arabia. But we didn't put boots on the ground. We didn't put people at risk. So we didn't make the T-shirt. So we didn't get the political capital that being involved with those things. And I think Canada learned from that politically. And pretty much every conflict after that, we had boots on the ground. Mm-hmm. So it's important that, we continue to participate, even if it's a token force, which really it is. Let's be honest, the last thing the 82nd Airborne needs is, 150 more guys that can fall out of airplanes and blow stuff up.
Yeah.
They've got those.
Yeah.
But it matters that they're Canadians. Similarly, we have troops in Latvia right now. Do we really need another half battalion of mechanized infantry? Probably not. But it matters that they're serving under a Canadian flag. It is a deterrence for foreign aggression. Mm-hmm. So it matters, and we've got to continue to do that. But at the time I was in, there was a lot of training and not a lot of action. It was discouraging. And we were cleaning our weapons one morning, actually, after running around the woods all night. And somebody said it doesn't really matter because we're never going anywhere. 4.5 months later, we were in the desert.
Really?
So it does matter. And I think a lot of the young soldiers that are here in Edmonton, perhaps other places, maybe starting to get that feeling. Mm-hmm. They see the senior people with a rack of medals from other places, but there's not a lot going on today.
Yeah.
And absolutely, as a society, we have to support them. And as individuals, they have to decide that this could be happening tomorrow.
Yeah.
And the students I just spoke to a few weeks ago, I'm like, dudes, this is not the end point. You finish a course. Do you ever finish a course and it's like, whew, it's over?
Yeah.
It's just the beginning, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. You just do the training and then, the real experience is quite different sometimes.
Absolutely. Yeah. 100% believe that. But the difference between you doing scenario-based training and then 12 hours later, the next time you go through a door, there may be somebody on the other side who is determined to kill you. Mm-hmm. And all of a sudden, it's not such a game. Mm-hmm. And as a military, I saw that, I called it the Cyprus mentality. Cyprus, with the exception of 1974, when there was a shooting war, Cyprus was a pretty Gucci tour. You went there, you stood in a bunker, you wore a blue helmet, you went to the beach, you got drunk, you bought a lot of gold, you came home with a medal 6 months later. Pretty Gucci tour.
Yeah.
Not easy, but interesting, but pretty sweet. For example, now when our soldiers return from overseas, they actually stop in Cyprus and have a little vacation before they unwind before they come home, right? So, but it was the Cyprus mentality. A couple times we went places and particularly Kosovo in 1999, and we honestly thought we were going to get into a hard shooting war with what we call a near peer, or in the reality, slightly better equipped force, the Serbian armored columns. We really thought we'd be going missile to missile and toe to toe. And when we didn't, I saw the whole organization go, mm-hmm. and revert back to Cyprus mentality. Problem was, like I said earlier, is it doesn't have to be World War III for somebody to die. And that was one of the times I came closest to being killed, was in a relatively nothing conflict. And it can happen.
So if you're in training, what's your first deployment after that? Because you're saying you're in the desert.
Yeah, 4.5 months after that conversation. Yeah, so I spent about 3.5 years in 2 Commando, falling out of airplanes, running around woods, running around deserts, running around North Carolina forests, doing lots of good, fun, cool guy stuff. In the airborne, it's a lot more individual. So a team of 4 guys would be trained to go and take a bunch of rockets and literally go hunt a tank. So we had tank hunting ranges where we would have a simulated tank all out there, and we'd have to figure out how to sneak up on and blow it up without getting blown up ourselves. We were messing around with basic explosives. We were shooting machine guns at night. We're patrolling in over a day and a half. We did 4 days up into the Ghost River, into the headwaters of the Ghost River,
Where is that?
Down near Calgary.
Okay.
Yeah, we did. I think it was a 4.5 or 5 day approach, and then we went into a Cirque Lake at the headwaters of the Ghost River. Did an attack. Kind of high altitude. I think it's the highest I've ever been. We were up over 10,000 feet, and then did an extraction up and over top of a mountain down the rivers and then into Canmore. So that was the kind of training we were expected to go anywhere and do anything, be able to do it in all weather, all terrains. So we did that for about 3.5 years, and the Airborne Regiment had been tapped to go to some place called Western Sahara, which is, if you think of Africa, it's kind of at the 11 o'clock.
Mm-hmm.
It's just west of the Mediterranean. It's may or may not be owned by Morocco, depending on who you talk to, and that's why they were going to send us there. That mission, it was a UN mission, so it had to have all the parties involved accepting it. And Morocco played along until it was time for us to go, and then they're like, "Yeah, no, we don't want you coming." So we had trained to go to Morocco, to Western Sahara, and do a blue helmet flag waving presence operation. And at about the same time, a wave of starvation and warfare struck the Horn of Africa on the other side of the continent. And we had a news media bombarding people with images of starving people. It's horrible. But it was the first time this level of horrible had really been seen by mass audiences in North America. So off we went. The Americans, originally there was a UN mission to go there, and those troops were on the ground, but they were under what I'll call UN rules. The first group that was there, Pakistan, Morocco, a few other countries, they wore blue uniform, blue hats, and were constrained by very, very, very limited rules of engagement, like even down to the amount of ammunition they were allowed to carry. The U.S. decided that wasn't enough. We had learned from the Coalition of the Willing that we didn't make the T-shirt, so Canada wanted to be boots on the ground this time. And after being shuffled around in the organization a couple times, we landed. I think our first guys went in just before Christmas of 1992, and by New Year's Day we were all there. And we landed in a city called Belatwain, which is right up against the Somali-Ethiopian border. And I'll stick a little asterisk by that concept of border for a minute. We got in there, landed an aircraft, lived out of our rucksacks with little to no support, dug holes in the ground, strung a few tarps up, and that's where we lived for 2 or 3 weeks, and that's literally all the equipment we had. We sent patrols into the city, dominated the area. There were a couple brief firefights that didn't go well for the bad guys, so they stopped having firefights with us. So we dominated the city pretty quickly.
At this point, are you involved in the sniping program, or you're actually down there, like right at the front line?
Yeah, no, but by this point, when the Western Sahara thing happened, we reorganized a couple times, and when it didn't happen, we reorganized again, and I got the opportunity to go to an organization called the Pathfinder Platoon, which is about 35 guys within the Airborne Regiment, but it's made up of guys from across the regiment and across the Special Service Force. So I was actually a junior guy, super junior guy, in the Pathfinder Platoon when we deployed to Somalia, and I was the only, there were other guys with sniper rifles. I think Frank may have been the only other qualified guy who had a rifle, but that wasn't really his job. He was a platoon warrant, I think. But I was a sniper. I was the only sniper I know of, full-time sniper in Somalia and I was working with the Pathfinder Platoon out of the headquarters. So that was my job.
Okay.
The finest of 1970s bolt-action rifles.
What kind of equipment were you using?
Pretty rudimentary. My first sniper rifle, when I went through training, and I did that in 1989, so the year after I went to the Olympics, got to the Airborne, did the Airborne indoctrination, pretty much right away got onto a sniper course. And sniping at the time was very, very, very small. I think by the time we graduated, 8 of us, there were 16 qualified snipers in the Army. It was almost dead.
Wow.
So fast forward a couple of years, we end up in Somalia. I'm the only full-time sniper in the platoon, and I'm supporting raids. And it wasn't particularly well organized. There were times that we set up on this one house. I got up in a little tower to watch our guys move in and cover them moving in. And there was a platoon from one commando, one of the other organizations, coming out of the same place. We were having so much fun, I think, that we just ran out of bad guys to chase. But that's how we dominated the ground, right? We dominated the city, and the bad guys decided it wasn't a good deal to play.
And is your job, I mean, most people are only going to have the movies as a frame of reference, but are you set up, quite a distance away, and, you're trying to see as much as you can of the field and kind of protect your guys?
Well, sure. It's that's a good basic concept, and certainly in the Cold War, that's kind of the way we trained guys in ghillie suits off crawling around by themselves. We did do that at times. A lot of these direct action raids, I might be like a couple 100 meters, 200 meters away, giving immediate, direct, intimate support. We weren't the Blue Berets limited rules of engagement. We had limited rules of engagement, but the cool thing was if there were bad guys, we went after them. We weren't constrained by having to wait to be shot at first, or we just hunt them down and deal with them there. And that, like this one raid, I set up, I was in this tiny little tower, just balled ass up there, like a flag on a pole. Like I certainly wasn't concealed in any way, shape, or form.
Really?
But it's direct support. So they know I'm there anyways, because there's our guys banging on the door by then anyhow. So you asked about the equipment. We had gone through a bit of a refit of the rifle, but the rifle I had basically was not that different than your typical 308 hunting rifle. Had a slightly better scope, wooden stock, and that was about it.
Really?
We didn't even have a spare pistol for me to carry around. So,
you didn't, no backup system?
No, I had an untrained partner, Andre, who stood at the base of the tower and kind of protected me. But a lot of the time I ended up working alone up in the desert, up against the border. Later on in Mogadishu, I would have one or two partners at different times, but generally I ended up working alone there, which is not the great way to do things.
It sounds more like what you see in the World War II movies, where you get the lone guy in a bell tower.
Yeah.
As opposed to now, everybody's got a spotter with them.
Yeah, that's what I felt like. We didn't have, we were supposed to have a spotter, but again, I said there was a real shortage of trained guys. So I'd use other guys at times, sometimes to really great effect. And it's the same as see in the movie. Sometimes you'll see like a Marine stuck in behind the sniper and he's doing like rear security. So it was kind of more like that. As always, we happily made it up as we went along, for, again, lack of training, lack of funding, lack of equipment, but we still did it.
So while you're in Somalia, can you talk about some of the deployments that you went on there,
Sure.
the missions, and maybe some of the people that were involved, some of the guys you remember?
And that's, we hear this in all professions. It's really about the people. And it's doubly true in the infantry and in the airborne in particular. We don't have big tanks. When the tank turns left, the guy loading the gun turns left. He doesn't have a choice. When the ship turns to starboard, you're going with the ship. But with the infantry and with the airborne in particular, we say you volunteered with every step, because there was literally no one capable of making you do things. It was a choice of every day. So the people I served with, it's so easy to say that we stand on the shoulders of giants, but damn, it's true. Like, just fabulous people, particularly in all areas. But the part that stands out to me was the Pathfinder platoon was in 2 commando, and then lots of guys in the regular battalions too. By the time I went to Pathfinder platoon, I'd been in the airborne like a full 3.5 years, longer than normal. Like, I'm not being a dick, but I knew what I was doing. Like, I was one of the better soldiers because I had more time, and I was pretty interested in it. When I got to Pathfinder platoon, I was solidly in the bottom half. There were some studs. Like, there were some amazing people. And I learned from all of them. And it was a hyper-motivated, highly idealistic, competitive, but supporting environment as well. By the time, by the time we'd gone to Somalia and then gone through a bunch of training together, you felt like, when we go back to, you feel like there's nothing you can't do.
Mm-hmm.
Well, this is based on, like I said, the first thing is by actual good, solid training and experience. And I'm still brothers with many of the guys from that platoon. Some live just minutes or a couple hours from me. We're still in contact. I'm linking up with one of them later today.
Okay.
So it's that quality of people. It's the absolute trust in the worst possible situations. Later on, we were in Mogadishu, and we were under some moderate contact. They were trying to shoot their way into the front gate, and a guy named Rock LeClaire, he was the platoon warrant for the one commando platoon that was working security. And Rock gave an order for somebody to give him cover and didn't even look sideways. He just started running because he knew those guys would support him. And machine gun fired. Our guys kept going, and Rock kept running with the extra ammo that the other guys needed down the line.
Mm-hmm.
And he didn't even look sideways. He didn't hesitate. He didn't question. He just knew that once he said, "Hey, I need this," it was going to happen, come hell or high water.
Mm-hmm.
And it did. Another time we're doing in the Pathfinder 2, we did the free fall parachuting, not the meat bombs under the round parachutes, but the higher altitude stuff where you're actually flying the chute and stuff. And that takes some practice, and regularly, but once a year, we do a jump camp. And like everything else in the military, like anything else safety related, there's rituals. I mean, when you get ready for a shift, there's certain rituals you do, I imagine.
Mm.
Like, how long does it take you to get ready for a shift?
It'll take me maybe like 5-10 minutes, but you kind of do things in the same order. So I know I make sure I got everything that I'm supposed to go out the door with.
Yeah.
Right. So that's your process of doing
Mm-hmm.
things. Call it a ritual.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah. And then you have there's actually a lot of guys who have weird little quirks.
Sure.
Right. And they're going to tap this or touch that or do something. And so whatever kind of makes you feel like you're ready.
Sure.
So
yeah, it's a psychological as well as a physical preparation.
mm-hmm.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's the same whenever there's risk involved. Pilots have a pre-flight check.
Mm-hmm.
And when you're falling into one of their airplanes, it's about an 8-hour process that you go through with multiple safety checks. And we'd gone through this. It was about 2 hours for this one because it was not technical jumping. We'd gone through about a 2-hour process. And because we didn't have a lot of equipment on us, the aircraft, which had a ramp at the back, didn't touch the ground because they don't want to scratch their paint on the runway, right?
Mm-hmm.
When we're carrying heavy equipment, they have to put it right down, and we have like a step and stuff. But like today, they weren't quite touching. So as I stepped up onto this ramp, I arched my back to get up there, and the one pin that holds both your parachutes in popped. And a guy named Mike Denis, who was our platoon warrant at the time, was right behind me with another guy named Ralph Plant and Rene Plant. Mike took his hand, put it right over my pin right away. And he said, "Wait." Now, Mike was also a world-class free faller, like literally would compete at the international level. So was Rene or Ralph. And Mike put it back in, checked it, and he said, "You're good to go." Later on, I'm like, wait a minute. By the rules, I'm supposed to go and like ditch that chute, and it's supposed to be flown like back to Edmonton to be checked across the other side of the country. And there's logbooks to be filled out, and why did this happen? Blah blah blah. But at the time, I didn't even hesitate because guys like Mike and Ralph absolutely trust each other 110%. There was just no question ever entered my mind.
Yeah,
and it was the same in operations. If somebody said, "Hey, we need you at this place, covering that building at this time," it'd be like, yeah, that's just going to happen. It doesn't matter what's in the way or what happens, and there's always something that happens.
Mm-hmm.
You know that. You just had to be there. You just absolutely had to be there at that time doing that thing because everyone else depended on you.
And that's one thing that I think is missing from policing nowadays.
Yeah.
Is that I want to call it blind trust, but some of the stuff you see out there and the things that happen make you go, boy, I don't know where the training's gone or how that person got in here or what's going on. But I think a lot of it comes out of just saying that everybody's the same. Everybody is can just do every job. It's like, nope. Some people are better for some things than others.
I am colorblind as a stick, man. You do not want me flying your airplane.
Mm-hmm.
That's just a reality.
Yeah.
Everybody's got their strengths and weaknesses, and we should be used. But the only way to find out who's who in the zoo is extensive training followed by actual operations.
Yeah.
You talked about earlier about it was all the old tough and battle-wizened guys. Yeah, they've got something. They've got a credibility that, we talked earlier off mic about Jason Mitchell.
Mm.
That dude's got 100% credibility in my mind because he's been there, done that thing. And that's only earned by actual good, hard training that's difficult and demanding and being willing to fail and struggle, fail again, and then learn from it. And that's how you earn the credibility to trust each other. It can't be, it can be nice slogans, through these doors, walk the finest police officer. Absolutely. We got to believe that.
Yeah.
But it only gets backed up if we do the work.
Well, so one of the things you talked about in the previous episode was when you were over in Somalia and there was the Battle of the Black Sea. Yeah. Were you involved in that at all?
No. And I lived with about 10 years of survivor's guilt because of that.
Oh, really?
I left on June 25th, 1993, and the Battle of the Black Sea, or was immortalized by the movie Black Hawk Down. That happened on October 3rd and 4th, so several months later. Regardless, it happened in a part of the city that at the time I thought I'd have been able to cover. And I had no doubt in my mind that had that happen within my arcs, I'd have been a part of it. I would have done everything I could to support those guys because they literally were our sister battalion. We were bonded to the 2nd Ranger Battalion.
So were you, or was Canada, I should say not you, but was Canada involved in that at all?
No, I was...
I say they weren't in the movie.
Nope, not at all. Although that's not unusual.
Yeah. Well, that's why I asked.
Yeah, exactly. No, we committed. We didn't commit to a particular set. When we went, there was no fixed deadline. A lot of missions around that time, it evolved into kind of a 6-month tour. That was a standard tour for Canadians, but at the time it was completely open-ended. And depending on who you were and when you came and went, it was anywhere from probably about 4.5 months to I was 6 months to the day that I left, that I came back. Left December 26th, came back June 26th. And things were just starting to ramp up. And in retrospect now, I had a sniper position on the headquarters building of the new port right in downtown Mogadishu. And we'd see Black Hawks, other helicopters fly over, and you would see RPG-7s, which are not meant to shoot down helicopters, but what they were trying was they'd start at kind of an outer ring and you'd see 5 or 6 of them come up from 800 meters away. And then you'd see 5 or 6 come up from 400 meters away. And they were zoning in, trying to get these helicopters. And that was training provided to the local Somalis by Al-Qaeda. That was actually bin Laden's people.
It's almost like they're using RPGs in a mortar sense.
Yeah, kind of. That's what happened in the movie Black Hawk Down and the Battle of Black Sea Market. Black Sea Market was a place where a lot of stuff got sold. Famously, a lot of weapons. And that's just, they were going after a bad guy. And a couple bad things in a row happened. And they wound up getting some of their helicopters getting hit by RPGs, by rocket-propelled grenades, which again are made for blowing up trucks and small tanks, not shooting down helicopters. But it was certainly a dedicated and coordinated effort for them to do so.
So what's kind of one of your most, I'd say, memorable experiences for whatever reason from your deployment to Somalia?
Man, that I'll talk about here, probably my favorite one, and it's a picture on my kitchen wall now. And we were doing security. We were there to end a war, but we did that pretty quick, probably in about the first 4 days. And there were there were light contacts pretty much the whole time afterwards, but not real hard fighting until we got down into Mogadishu near the end. But one of my favorite memories is one that's in a photograph. We were doing security to relocate a bunch of refugees out of a refugee camp by the city. One of the aid organizations was relocating them out in a stretch of desert by a river and establishing them as a new village. So they had they had lots of supplies. Hell, they had a whole new tarp. They had a tarp. They had 6 months of grains. They had seeds, and our engineers had drilled a water pump and got a pump established so they'd be able to water the crops. So these people are literally war refugees. And as I pointed my little shitty 35 millimeter disposable camera at this woman, I pointed a camera at her because despite being a refugee in a very desperately poor and famished nation, she was dressed in this beautiful, beautiful garb. And she was clean, and so was her child. And the moment I pointed my camera, the look of pride in her face was striking. And as I looked at her more, I realized she was by herself. So she didn't have a husband. And I spoke a little language, so I spoke to her, and she did not have a husband anymore. She was heavily facially scarred from an earlier injury, and she had a daughter. She had nothing because in the culture of the time, the parents would go and live with the son. And if you had a daughter, she'd be supporting and caring for her husband's parents. So that kid was a pension plan, but that kid was a girl. And that culture was no pension plan. So this woman was leaving a refugee camp to go to build a grass hut in the desert and hopefully raise a crop with her literal possessions on her back and no future, really. And she was still proud and happy the moment I pointed the camera at her. So kind of realized I got nothing to complain about.
Yeah. Puts things into perspective real quick.
Yep. That's why she's on the kitchen wall.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
That's a pretty good story.
Yeah, it's a pretty remarkable moment. There's lots of stupid stuff of, running around the desert doing cool guy stuff and flying in helicopters. And it was quiet enough for a while. We even did an exchange with the Italian commando group next door to us, was also obviously airborne. So we fell out of each other's airplanes for lack of something better to do. And there's a certain degree of what we call military tourism. You get bored, so you find a reason to go over to their camp and eat their rations and trade for their kit, which is definitely better than ours because it's different. And there was many, many good times. And I mean, it was hard living. Like this was not Afghanistan, which is hard enough and brutal war. We literally had nothing. Like we actually took pictures when we got a floor. We had enough plywood that they came and made us a floor. And like, we literally had, I think eventually we got our kit boxes. So we had like basically 2 small suitcases and a rucksack. And that's what you lived with for 6 months.
So how come we're sending soldiers over, but they're just so woefully prepared? Like, how do we not have any bases or anything?
Well, we don't have the bases. We don't have the ability to project force very well. We have a tiny amount more now. But at the time, it's just that we were so remote. Like we were good, and I can't remember the proper number. Somebody will correct me, but I'd say we were at least 500 to 700 kilometers from the city, up the one semi-paved highway in the country. We're literally pretty much the ends of the earth. Remember, I stuck an asterisk in the border idea.
Yeah.
We arbitrarily, somewhere in the Western world, drew a line on the map and decided that's the difference between Ethiopia and Somalia, which is news to them. They don't recognize the border in any way. They see it's very clan-based, or was at the time. The people over there on that side of our border were just as much their cousins as the ones 5 miles the other way.
Yeah.
So it was a hard border for us most of the time, but it was just part of their normal existence. They didn't really care whether that border was there or not.
How did you find, so when you're operating over there, How do you find the leadership and keeping people motivated? Because imagine you're seeing lots of destruction and gore and everything in between.
Yeah.
So how do they keep you going?
I was really lucky because I thought we had good. We had conflict within our chain of command. There were certain levels that didn't get along with other levels, like in my immediate chain of command. But regardless, I felt we had a pretty good chain of command immediately. At the regimental level, I'll be blunt, it was a shit show. It was a perfect storm of a chain of leaders, of weak leaders being in the wrong places at just the wrong time. And it was just an accident of history and a bunch of other factors of why those people were there at that time. But there was a lack of leadership. And it wasn't specific to the Airborne Regiment. The problem that the Airborne Regiment had were exactly the same as every other unit in the Army at the time. I'm a trench level soldier, so I can only guess at things like rampant careerism, nepotism, regimental nepotism. I know for a fact that the commander we took to Somalia was only placed into that job because he belonged to a certain unit, a certain regimental family. And the people that were choosing the next commander, even though it was the turn of a PPCLI commander to go and take command of the Airborne Regiment, they thought it would look too bad. It would look inappropriate if they chose another Patricia officer to go into that slot, even though it was that officer, that regiment's turn. So there are a lot of factors that ended up in weak leadership. And it is difficult when loyal people finally lose faith in their organization. And for me, it was a couple of years after Somalia when I realized that the commanders at the highest level in the Canadian Forces were openly not taking responsibility. And subsequent to the mission to Somalia, the government found it easier to have a commission of inquiry than answer questions in Parliament. So they shuffled it off to a commission of inquiry. And the commission of inquiry talked to all the soldiers, from guys like me on the ground all the way up to the chief of defense staff. And the chief of defense staff, at the time of the Somalia inquiry, had been second or third in command of the military at the time, and was the one that was responsible for all overseas operations, including Somalia. On the stand and on the record, he said, well, they reported through me, but not to me. He abdicated all responsibility. Just a complete and utter abandonment of it. And that hurt. Because, I talked about, Mike putting his hand on the back of my chute, and I just trusted him to do his job. Mm-hmm. This guy was letting me down.
It's almost reminiscent of in parts or portions of the Nova Scotia inquiry with the Mounties right now, and some of the stuff you hear coming out of there on record.
Man.
So interesting.
It's your podcast, so I'll be gentle, but damn. Yeah, it's the same things 20 years later, 30 years later. Mm-hmm. It's the same problems. Well, it's interesting. The Somalia inquiry was suddenly covered by, it was suddenly cut short because we'd taken too long and spent too much money. They ran out of soldiers to talk to, and they're starting to talk to people like Bob Fowler, who was the Associate Minister of Defense. And then they were going to talk to the Minister of Defense. And then they were going to talk to the Deputy Prime Minister. All of a sudden, we couldn't have an inquiry anymore. That's a reality.
And there's not a lot of, I've never seen any real books on the Somalian deployment, except there's, was it Romeo Dallaire? Am I saying that right?
Romeo Dallaire was Rwanda.
Rwanda, that's right.
He was after, and we sent a whole bunch of airborne soldiers there to protect. We sent a hospital again because boots on the ground, baby.
But there's nothing on Somalia, though, hey?
There is. Rui Amaral wrote a book called "Eat Your Weakest Man," which was kind of a tongue-in-cheek motto. Rui wrote a book about his experiences that encompassed. I think he was the quartermaster for 2 Commando at the time, so he was immediately present to some of the events, good and bad, that happened there. For those that don't know, there was flat out a murder in Somalia by 2 of our soldiers on a thief who had broken into our compound. And that's where the famous Somalia crisis, or Somalia, all the problems came from. We had a weak chain of command that allowed a racist narcissistic psychopath to torture a local guy to death. And while there probably was some cover up on the desert level, there's definitely some cover up happened on the national level. The prime minister was Kim Campbell. She had been appointed into the position when the former prime minister left. So she had just ascended from deputy into prime minister, and she was trying to be prime minister. She was heading into an election. So my guess, again, this is only a trench level soldier, but my guess is there was an attempt to cover up at about the Bob Fowler level that was trying to protect her from any possible problems. And as a result, then there was more and more and more cover up. And damn, there was some cover up.
Well, this is where we get into talking about, we've talked about this before, but the leadership versus management.
Yeah.
And just because you're in a higher rank doesn't mean necessarily somebody that people would want to follow.
Yeah, absolutely.
Did you get a lot of interaction with the local community, the people there that you're there to help?
A limited amount. Well, it sounds all cool to be the platoon sniper. That means I was held in reserve a lot. So our reconnaissance dads would be roaring around the desert doing cool guy stuff, and I'd be stuck back in camp. So I made contact with a local young man who came to the gate looking for work, and I put him to work teaching me Somali for a little while, paid him a bit out of my pocket, and eventually we hired him as an interpreter. So I came to know a little bit of the culture through them, and I can't run, too fat to fly, but I can learn languages. So I was fluent within about, well, not fluent, but I was conversational within about 2 months. And or I was let's put it another way, I was tolerated within about 2 months by the locals. So I had a little bit more insight. And the cool part is every day I would question this young fellow who worked for us about what was going on and shifting allegiances and everything that was going on. And I learned that the toughest thing on earth is an African woman. Like unbelievably cheerful, unbelievably strong, unbelievably resilient. And that's where I saw leadership, was in the families by the women. Saw bad leadership or management by some of the warlords. But yeah, it was for a young farm boy, his first time overseas. It was enlightening to see the women of another culture just absolutely blow me away with their strength. On our side, we had some amazing leaders and some horribly poor managers. Leadership is, not just being willing, but actual immediate. I think the first rule is immediate physical presence. You've got to be out there. And I know you've got white shirts, man. They're out there doing foot chases. I've heard the stories, and that's the kind of guy we needed in charge of us.
Well, there's a difference between leading from the front and leading from the back.
You're managing from the rear. If you're not immediately physical present. After Somalia, we got one of the finest, scariest leaders I've ever met in my life, Colonel Kenward, and his son's on your force, so I'll embarrass him now. But his dad was the leader who you'd hear stories about, like in movies. Like you'd go to do something, this guy had already done it. There was an annual, just a run and shoot competition, and Colonel Kenward took over the regiment in about 94, and we were tapped to do this team of run and shoot. So we show up at the start line, and the unit that was organizing it messed it up. They started the start line about 2.5 kilometers further than it should have been. So the 3K run was now 5.5.
Oh.
And we needed to meet the same timings. So we took off, and I could run at the time, and we were running like the wind. Colonel Kenward caught up to us, and then he stopped to talk to the brigade commander. Then he caught up to us again and was there when we crossed the finish line.
Wow.
He's the kind of guy. We went down to Georgia, and, we're up to our chest in a swamp, and we get to where we're going, and he's standing there waiting for us. That's leadership. The guy who was out there, not just for the fun jumps, but the real heavy equipment ones at 2 a.m, that no one else knew he was there. No one else cared he was there, but he was there doing it. And that's immediate physical leadership. And it's doing the unpopular things. His leader, like, man, he was in charge of 2 commando just before I got there. And I know for a fact he fired 1 officer out of the airborne and 1 right out of the Army because they were incompetent. That's not a popular thing to do, but it was the right thing to do. And that's leadership.
Yeah, when you get up into the higher levels, whether they want to or not, or like to or not, or are friends or not, you still don't see people willing to pull the trigger on firing somebody of rank.
Yeah, it's a big deal. It's a big deal. But when we heard he was taken in late 93, early 94, we heard he was taken over. There were 2 reactions. One was, oh God. And the other was, awesome.
Yeah.
And I couldn't wait. He was exactly what the airborne needed at the time. Yeah.
So a couple of things that you mentioned before was you've had a few near-death experiences. Mm-hmm. Were any of those in Somalia? Or is this on the other deployments?
Remember I said it wasn't the big things that kill you?
Yeah. That's why I'm curious. What are these?
Yeah. So in a fit of eagerness and knowing that I was going to go home any day, I come down out of my sniper bunker on the top of the building, and I'm like, hey, boss, I'm going to go. I need to rack out for a few hours. And as I was headed down to where my cot was, I saw one of the American engineers there. And I'd been talking to them earlier about something else, and they're like, hey, man, we're going to go blow this thing up. It's not a big deal, but would you mind coming for security? Because often their security is being provided by other units in their military or other nations, some of which were less than enthusiastic about being shot at. So I'm like, oh, no, man, 100%, let me grab my stuff. And talk about leaders doing unpopular things. Jerry Scheidel was a rock star sergeant in 2 Commando when I got there. And he was one of the guys, like, I wouldn't even go talk to him. He's so freaking cool. You know, like, I wanted to be like Jerry, right? And then one day they're like, hey, man, you're going to go do just in training, they're like, you're going to do a 4-man reconnaissance patrol with Sergeant Scheidel. I'm like, awesome. So he comes over and he gives my initial information called initial warning order. He's like, oh, yeah, grab your helmet. And I made kind of a 20-year-old face because we're big, rough, tough paratroopers. We don't wear helmets, man. That's for legs. We dump our helmets off on the drop zone with our parachutes, man. Why the hell are we going to wear helmets? And he wasn't a dick about it. He just looked at me and said, hey, man, like, just listen. If you get shot in the body, you'll probably live. You get shot in the head, you're probably done. So bring your helmet. We'll strap them on our webbing. We won't wear them on the walk-in, but we'll put them on when we get close to the bad guys. I'm like, oh, cool. So fast forward about 4 years later, I'm in Somalia, and I'm like, yeah, man, sure, I'll come do security with you. And I went and grabbed some of my other kit because we were going outside the base. And I saw my helmet, and I heard Jerry's voice in my head, grab your helmet. I'm like, fuck, okay. So I put it on, and what we're going to do was to go supposedly blow up some munitions that somebody had found on a soccer field. Mm. And when we got there, all that was there was a big steel bomb casing. Okay, about the size of a washing machine, a little bigger than a washing machine. But it was empty. All the explosives had been taken out. It was sitting in the middle of the soccer field. So we're like, it's one of those cases like, hey, man, we came here to blow something up. We're going to blow something up. So the Americans put what's called an earmuff charge. It's 2 small charges, one on the opposite side, and it blows inward and it vaporizes everything inside. Not a big deal. So we back off all of about 70 meters, and I had my left finger in my left ear, and I was bringing my right hand up when I lost consciousness because the explosion went off, and what it actually ignited was all the explosives we figured that were buried underneath that bomb casing in the ground. They were cached in the ground, and that steel casing was a marker. Jeez. And it sympathetically detonated off the explosion that the Americans set. So the wall saved us from the blast, and my helmet saved me from the wall because it fell down, and we figured we were less than 5 minutes before we regained consciousness and dug ourselves out. But it seems the whole country had come look at us.
Jeez.
So yeah, we dug each other out, and I was concussed as hell. That one I was still concussed about a year later.
So when they were setting that charge up, when they were standing on
tons of God knows how much explosives. We didn't really stick around to do a bomb damage assessment. But yeah, there's a big smoking hole in the ground in that soccer field.
Wow.
Yeah, and we were lucky to survive. And again, it was just a mud wall that happened to be in the right place. But I lost most of the hearing out of my right ear. And that's just an example of a leader like Jerry saying unpopular things and making unpopular things, but good things, right things happen. Saved my life over there.
Yeah.
Yeah, the stupidest, smallest things. Yeah, we were bombing around the desert in these armored vehicles, and I'm up in the top in the turret, and the boss, Mike Rainbow, is in the commander's hatch just in front of the turret behind the driver. And, no GPS, man. We had maps. Sometimes the maps were actually blank, like we literally drew them as we went. But we're bombing along the desert, and there's a bit of an oasis, like you picture a few trees and shrubs. And as we came over the hill, the driver was still going about 110 kilometers an hour when we drove into a group of about 20 camels. And I'm looking at this, and I look forward, and Mike Rainville is turned backwards with his head and shoulders sticking out of the commander's cupola. And he turns around, and he sees the camel that's halfway across the road. And like a squirrel making a decision to go back, this camel upended and turned around mid-stride in the middle of the road. And Mike dropped. And I swear he had camel spit on his face because that camel's head bounced off the front of the turret and actually damaged the steel. If Mike had been a quarter second later, he'd have been dead. No question about it. And it's just the stupid little things like that that just happen all the time.
Man, you would think if someone came to invade Canada and you're going to run into a moose out there and that's what's going to take you out.
Yeah, well, hey, how many times, like even on the Henday, man, how many times have you heard of animal vehicle collisions?
Yeah.
Look at our river valley right here, man.
Yeah, quite often.
Yeah, all the time. So it's the small, stupid things. We were lucky. Talk about leadership. Paul Springer is still a friend of mine. Paul looked like an average soldier. Frankly, in a uniform, he looked like a bag of sandwiches standing there. Till we went over to Somalia, and he turned into a rock star. In our first few days there were shots fired right in the town. So Paul's section takes off about 6 or 8, 10 guys. And he tells the story way better than I do. But the bottom line is Paul came running around the corner, and there were 2 dudes shooting each other with AKs. And one of them turned his AK on Paul, and Paul barely even broke stride. He just up and dropped the guy 2 rounds to protect the rest of his guys. Later on, near the end of the tour, the big base in Mogadishu had a really nice beach on a real nice ocean, had some real nice sharks in it. And there's a young woman, I think from Italy, was out there swimming, and a shark took her leg off. And so she's screaming, and Paul and a couple other guys are on the beach with like inner tubes. And Paul turns to Bob Farquhar, I think, and he goes, "Well, I guess we're going." And they did. They swam out there. I don't know how you chase a shark away, but they did. Drug her back in. Unfortunately, she bled out in the water. But they went into shark-infested waters with blood in the water and a fin showing.
Jeez.
Yeah, because it was the right thing to do.
Crazy.
Yeah, and that's leadership.
Mm-hmm.
That's the kind of exceptional people that were just average dudes.
Mm-hmm.
And you won't really know until the flag flies, until it's actual time. So it was the best thing I've ever done, and some of it was the worst stuff I've ever done. So
yeah. What? So we're talking about Somalia quite a bit. You had another deployment, another major one that you were involved in.
Yeah, there was some little stuff on the other end of things after the airborne. I got to spend 2 years in what we used to call battle school, and this is where we train young soldiers, where I went through in Sonny Wainwright. And I did a 2-year posting in Wainwright. It was a tough place for families, but I had a great time. Worked with a pretty well-known guy named Tim Turner. Tim and I kind of accidentally started the sniper cell there. We were asked to go to a competition. We went to the competition, but in preparation, we just started sending emails and making phone calls and stuff. And when we came back, there was our name on the door of sniper cell. So we were in the ORBAT. So spent 2 years doing mostly teaching sniper stuff, teaching young recruits. And then was posted back here to Edmonton. And we started up a sniper section, which didn't exist before, in the 1st Battalion PPCLI. And again, there wasn't much going on. And then boom, we were off to Kosovo. We sent a helicopter group over there, and within a couple of weeks, we realized we were going too. And I referred to it earlier, like we honestly did think going in that we were going up against a Serbian armored division. Like, no joke. Like, these dudes have been fighting a civil war for 10 years, and they were backed by Russia. They had some of the latest, greatest kit that the Russians would export. It was for real. And it wasn't until, I think, a couple of days before we went in that they reached a political, a couple of weeks, I'd say, they reached a political agreement where the Russians would pull out. But there were Canadian, we weren't there yet, but there were Canadian tankers in armored vehicles. Not tanks, but armored vehicles, who actually supervised the withdrawal of the Serbian forces. It wasn't guaranteed that they were going to withdraw, but they did. So we went in, and it was more of a peace enforcement. A terrorist organization called the Kosovo Liberation Army had been fighting the Serbs against a Serbian genocide of Albanian-based people, and they fixed to be the new army of Kosovo. And that, I mean, they were heavily influenced by organized crime, and some of these guys were flat out terrorists. So it was our job to make sure they didn't get to be the new army. And again, some of the closest scrapes I had were in a very low level conflict. And at the same time, some of the best and some of the worst leadership I saw too. We went in and did an observation post on and off for a couple of weeks. And the one night we were coming back, we were waiting in the clearing for the helicopters to come, and we got the call, helicopters aren't coming. So it happens. I mean, it's helicopters. We used to call them 50-50 squadron. 59% of the time they show up, 50% they wouldn't. So we walked up and over this mountain crest, this mountain pass, not very far, maybe 10-15 K, up and over this mountain pass through some mined areas, and got picked up by our own guys in an armored vehicle. And that's acceptable. What wasn't acceptable is the reason there was no helicopter is because our airfield, again, back to the UN Blue Beret thinking, was on strategically unimportant land deliberately put there so that we wouldn't be influencing one side tactically. Like in Bosnia, Croatia, former Yugoslavia, they used to inhabit land that was not tactically advantageous. That way one side or another couldn't attack you and say, oh, we needed the hilltop.
Okay.
Or we needed the valley,
the
valley pass or whatever. So our airfield was on this strategically unimportant piece of land that was also heavily fogged. The only good airport was at that time occupied by the Russians, who we had the use of, but their facilities weren't very comfortable. So it wasn't our pilots, but our operations officer at the time made the decision, or it's my understanding, is that he made the decision he didn't want his pilots sleeping in the fog-free but uncomfortable area. He wanted them at home. So we ended up humping our ass over a mountain ridge in a mined area because somebody didn't want his pilots to be uncomfortable.
Jeez.
And that's unacceptable.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. That's poor leadership.
Did you end up in any kind of firefights over there?
No. The ones I was really proud of in Kosovo was the no-shoot decisions we made. And it's the same in Somalia. The ones that I'm proudest of is not the shoot decisions, but the no-shoot. In Kosovo, there were, I'd say, about 4 or 5 times we could have quite within our rights, and it's hard to say, but I mean, like there's a time to shoot and a time. Have you ever had anybody that pointed a gun and made that decision?
Oh, we've been close and decided not to. I know some guys who have pulled the trigger on.
And when you didn't, why? Was there some kind
circumstances change at the very last split second? And for me, a lot of the stuff is knowing my capabilities, but not necessarily knowing the other person's capabilities that you're facing off with, but just everything you can see in front of you, and then what do I feel comfortable with? And it's crazy how fast that can process in your head, but it also afterward, knowing all the things you're excluding, because you look back at the call, whether it's through radio transmissions or things are said and they're documented on our computer system, like our communications people document certain things. You're like, well, I don't remember hearing that. I don't remember seeing that, but people were calling this out or saying that. But yeah, split second decisions. And it's very hard to flesh out as an example for people to really understand it.
Yeah.
So
it's not really would you agree that it's not always a fact-based decision or a conscious decision? It's more an intuitive. You
To a
just know
degree,
it's
yeah.
not right. Yeah, to a degree. Like there's a lot of info coming in, usually more than we can deal with.
I mean, I've had a,
But you just know.
yeah.
Sorry, go ahead.
Well, I was just gonna say, like, I've had somebody square off with me holding two 12-inch kitchen knives. They're right in the middle of Jasper Ave.
No joke.
And I've had my gun drawn. And they're within, they always talk about the 21-foot rule. But given other people there, other weapon systems available, and even though all the anger and everything's directed at me, I was one of the first ones off. And I'm trusting, well, that I'm going to make a shot if I need to, but that this other person standing, over to my right or standing over to the left is going to do their job or not shoot me or something crazy happens. Cause I mean, you never know how things will play out. So yeah.
And what I'm hearing is that you take things in so fast, but it's largely an intuitive. Like you may be able to I felt like I could go back after and verbalize why I did or didn't make a shot at any particular time. But 100% of the time for me, it was like, I don't have to kill that guy today. Well, or that ain't right.
Mm-hmm.
My partner actually made a really good choice. I was asleep at the time. We had an OP set up. Talk about being a long way. We were 127 meters from the headquarters of a bad guy division. And I was asleep middle of the day, and they had a parade, an inspection. And when we reviewed the video, because we were running video on the finest Best Buy equipment that the Canadian Forces could provide, off-the-shelf stuff, it looked like they got into a bit of an argument. He was lipping off the commander, and the commander pulled a gun and stuffed it right in his face, like right up under his chin. And my partner, Rick, probably could have shot at that time. But he had enough experience to know that, no, that's... And sure enough, it was just a bluff, and, it was posturing. Rick would have been 100% within his rights to do so, but he just knew intuitively. Same thing in Mogadishu. Somebody shot up the campground of the tents of the United Arab Emirates guys, and we got this call, and it was from the refugee camp. And then I saw this woman run with an AK, squat down by a fire, and stick an AK in one of the huts. And there's an American officer in charge of the harbor called the Harbor Master. It literally says that on his helmet or on his hat, Harbor Master. Anyways, the Harbor Master comes up, and he's a pretty high-ranking dude. And I explain the situation. He's like, "Well, shoot her." And I'm like, "First of all, I'm not in your army. I'm not even in your Navy. And it's just under 6 months here. I've never seen a woman carry a firearm in the country." And I couldn't verbalize that at the time. And within 2 minutes, of course, the radio traffic comes in, and it was a dude that shot at them. So you just, I couldn't have verbalized why I didn't shoot her, but I didn't because it just wasn't right.
Are decisions to shoot or not shoot, is that, are you left to make that decision on your own? Or is that always a call from above? Or is it kind of a mix depending on what you're doing?
There's a wild, first of all, imagine the police, you never abandon your right to self-defense, period. Our rules of engagement were poorly structured and poorly verbalized in Somalia, very well and very specific in Kosovo. Perhaps as a lesson learned from Somalia. The rules of engagement mandated at different times what you could and could not do. For example, soldiers in Afghanistan tells me stories of, when they first got there in the early 2000s, if there was somebody with a gun, you were shooting them.
Yeah.
But by the end, you had to be waiting until you were shot at. Or in Cyprus, the Turks and the Greeks would shoot at each other, but if they shot at you, that was different. So the short answer is it depended, but generally, especially as a sniper, that's one of the things we're looking for is judgment. We can teach people to press trigger. It's not rocket science. But judgment and decision-making is what we're looking for. And as a sniper, certainly, and as a soldier, you're trusted to make that decision. You're trained and equipped and practiced in much like your training. There's simulation training, There's situational training, make it as realistic as possible.
Yeah.
So largely it comes down to the same means, opportunity, and intent. Are they going to hurt me or somebody else? And whether you're standing 2 feet away with a bayonet or 1,000 meters away with a heavy rifle or 2 kilometers away with a chain gun, it's the same stuff. So it's dependent on the rules, but it also, you never abandon your right to self-defense.
Yeah. Well, one thing I wanted to make sure that we got to was kind of the outcomes. So from all your experiences and everything you've been through, what are kind of the mental and physical impacts that have been, I would say, resulted from, this long career in the military? And what have you seen with other people?
Somebody asked me if I was ever injured, and I'm like, no, man. I never got shot, right? And this speaks to a little bit of something else I'll touch on in a minute about Remembrance Day coming up. But I don't consider myself that I ever got injured. But remember, I said I got a wall blown down. Somebody said, well, did you get hurt? Anyways, well, like sitting right here right now, there's 7 things that hurt on me. Yeah. And like the old joke, describe your level of pain. Oh, pretty normal. The doctor's like, no, man, like no pain is normal. You're like, oh. My feet, my ankles, both knees, one's had surgery, my lower back, both shoulders, and both thumbs right now, and no hearing in my right ear. So there's a physical toll. I mean, same as you guys. The bigger thing is the mental toll it takes, and that's highly individual. And we don't really I think we understand now is that we don't understand. We're doing the best we can. After the Army, I became a medical radiological technologist, which means I mostly did x-rays, but I had a working knowledge of something called functional magnetic resonance imaging, where we can monitor the blood flow in the brain as it's thinking. So you can see what you're thinking, and you can see what largely. I can hear the MRI tech screaming out there. But the radiologist is teaching us, he's like, okay, you see this part of the brain? That part's in charge of fear. This is somebody with depression. This is somebody look at the size of this guy who's got PTSD. His parts of his brain in charge of stimulus response and fear are like jacked. They're like 3 times the size of a normal person's, because that's the physical component of post-traumatic stress disorder. Your body gets, just like a muscle you would work, and it becomes larger. The parts of the brain that are active in a response, not even a fear response, but an operational response. Like, I got to shoot that guy right there, right now. Like the part of the decision making in the brain that's there, that gets bigger and bigger and bigger, and stronger and stronger and stronger, to the point where it's like reacting to things it probably shouldn't. I always laugh going for coffee with cops. The same thing with 25 guys trying to sit in the corner of the coffee room, right? It's a lifetime of habits and attitudes that are appropriate for a threat environment that can become a problem after. Overlapping with that, there's a growing knowledge that traumatic brain injury, these symptoms almost 100%, well, about 90% overlap with post-traumatic stress disorder. And compounded on that, about the time I was leaving sniping, we started to get the heavier rifles in with muzzle brakes. And muzzle brakes are these devices at the end of the rifle that deflects a great deal of the blast back, and that's to make the rifle more stable during firing, more accurate. That low velocity blast repeated every time you do it is creating micro tears in your soft gray matter. That's the bottom line. The same physician, same neurologist that did the study of concussion for the NFL also completed one for Special Operations Command in Canada here. And the bottom line is shooting a 50 caliber rifle to your brain is like being tackled by an NFL linebacker every single time you fire it.
Jeez.
So it adds up. Yeah, and I know guys can absolutely quantify they fired 125 rounds one day.
Jeez.
It's like being tackled 125 times one day.
When you look at who has the longevity of average NFL player,
Bingo.
I think lineman is something like 3, maybe 5 years. An average one.
That's why cops and soldiers get paid as much as NFL linemen, right?
Yeah.
But yeah, it's so. I mean, the wear and tear on the body is hard, and I'm by no means exceptional in any way. I call myself big bag average. And I mean it. The physical toll from training incorrectly, from training with the wrong mindset of that you have to prove yourself and your manhood and your soldiers, the ability every damn day you step out there. Professionals now, in parts of our militaries, they'll be like, hey boss, I'm not feeling this run today. I'm going to go like do chest day instead. Cool, man. Go ahead. That didn't exist. It's like it didn't matter. Like I'd been in the airborne like 7 years. And the minute I started to have heart problems and fall back, they were like, oh, you're at the front. Keep driving on.
Yeah.
So your knees are, your cartilage is torn, but walk it off.
Yeah.
That mindset is too costly. And it's resulted in the physical injuries. And I think we're much better in the military from an outsider looking in. I think we're a lot better at managing some people's psychological and moral injuries, because they're two different things, than we used to be. Like when I left Somalia, we were the last plane load out of Canadians. There were still lots of other armies there. And I was shooting people at 10 or 11 a.m. and I was sitting in a luxury bar in Kenya at 2 p.m. and I was home within 24 hours. That was my transition. Now we're smart guys that came back from Afghanistan. They spent, I think, 3 or 5 days in Cyprus, kind of blow off some of that steam, do a little bit of the mental, emotional processing, and then some follow-up work back home. The Brits, when they brought their soldiers home from Falklands in the early 80s, they brought them back by boat on purpose for a month and a half and
So
went
they could
slow.
All hang out together, talk. Yeah.
Emotionally process what just happened.
Mhm.
They could have flown them all home in a day. They had the lift, but they floated them home.
Mhm.
That was done on purpose.
One thing I think is, I've never seen this come up, but I was kind of thinking about it the other day, was I don't think a lot of the guys want to come back straight away to family. I think
No.
you want to, whether it's because you want to hang out with your friends, your buddies that
brothers.
you just went through all this stuff with, whether that's for the mental health aspect, or maybe they just don't know they're doing it for that reason.
Yeah.
But that's who they want to be around. You feel the most comfortable around.
Yeah.
Because they do get to be a family
Oh,
after a while.
absolutely.
So
Lifetime.
yeah.
They are my family.
Yeah.
Yeah. 22-year-old me couldn't have used any of those words, but absolutely true.
Mhm.
Yeah. You may not know why, but that's absolutely true. And I think the worst that we've had in my living history is the reservists that were unfortunately necessarily attached to Reg Force units. They come back from Bosnia or Afghanistan on a Thursday, and they'd report Friday, and then like the full-time professional guys would be like, they'd have 6 months to a year follow-up. Well, Private Smith from North Battleford sitting there on his own for the next forever.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a tough transition.
Well, it's hard. You go back, and you know what? I've never experienced. I was in the military, but I just know from day-to-day work, I could do a full set 4 days, and you can see some of the craziest shit in 4 days.
Mm.
And then you just get home and off night shift, and it's like I still got to take another hour or two, and I'm just kind of winding down.
I can't even imagine. That's true.
Brain's just going and going and going. And it's not like you're, I wouldn't say you're upset about anything. It's just there's just so much going on, and your mind is still going.
Yeah.
Even when I get home, I'm just like, oh, I got to do this and I got to do that, and
I know.
these other things tomorrow. Like I'm just thinking
And
about
the rest of the
other,
world's had a normal 4 days.
yeah,
And they're like, why aren't, like I talked about earlier about, you would be there. I would be there come hell or high water.
hmm
Like it's the old joke, the veteran goes to school and it's like, the professor's like, hey, your paper is 1 day late. Do you know what happens? Oh, people die. It's like, no, man, I dock 5%. What's wrong with you?
yeah.
Yeah, so you're coming off of that. I can't even imagine. You're coming off of that emotional roller coaster, still trying to emotionally process it. And all your loved ones and everybody else around you is just having a normal day. Like that must be a surreal experience.
Well, and then everyone else is just going on with life. So
Doing normal stuff.
you wake up and it's like, okay, get back to dealing with this or family or whatever else. And it's like you can't even put into words all the stuff that's happened.
Yeah.
and then to kind of repeat that week after week after week, and then
That's what
year.
I'm talking about. I can't imagine.
Yeah, even the last, I've been around 10 years doing this, and everything's been operational, and so you're in the thick of it every single day.
Yeah.
So yeah, you definitely see a lot, and at this point, after especially doing a lot of the podcasts and talking to the people I talk to, you start to see a lot of this now, and it's very interesting, and for people to contextualize a lot of it. I think that's what's missing, is a lot of people don't know how to do that. So we need more experts on these things or people who've had the experience.
I think you're absolutely right. And I also see an increased conversation about it. And there is absolute need for professionals. I had a great therapy session with my shrink this morning. It was awesome. And it's very, very necessary, because I can be your brother or sister officer, and I can sit with you, and I can hear your stories, and I can do mental first aid with you. But at a certain time, you need to go see a surgeon.
Yeah.
And that is just a mature decision, even more so. Talk about leadership. You don't have to be a ranked position to show leadership. You can be the first guy in your squad to go like, hey man, I'm not going to be there tomorrow morning because I'm going to go see my shrink. I need to go and talk this out. That gives social permission for your peers. And if you're in any ranked position, for your subordinates, remember I talked about that switched order of battle?
Yeah.
Okay. That's your responsibility as a leader of any kind to model that behavior. Say, hey, like, this isn't working for me. I need to go and sort this out before it becomes a problem, because I'm a grown up and I'm a professional. And that's happening a little bit more. So it needs to be a conversation between peers, and it needs to be acknowledging that there's a time and a place for professionals too, and that it's professional, it's correct, it's good and right and true to go and get that help.
Yeah.
Because it's much better to just push it all down. That works so well for me, or did for about 10 years till the wheels fell off. And I don't want to over dramatize this, but when I look around my peer group of operational snipers, not the guys who took the course, but like the guys who actually went and worked, it's almost 100% PTSD. I say virtually. I'm struggling to think of one guy who isn't, because you're out there in ones or twos or fours, and that's it. You have to be switched on for 72 hours a week straight. And that does physiological things to your brain, whether you like it or not.
Yeah.
So and that's kind of what I think of you guys. You 12 on, 12 off for 4 days at a time, 365, X number of years. That adds up.
Yeah.
And the professional among you will go and get that stuff sorted out, just like going to a physiotherapist because your shoulder hurts, or getting a better belt because your back hurts. Yeah. Going and getting some art therapy or some music therapy or just some time in nature, whatever does it for you. That's the same thing as going and getting a better belt. It's just preventing injuries. So
I was like going out to the shooting range.
Hell yeah.
Talking to, I was at the Cairo, and they were asking like, oh, what'd you get up to this weekend? It's like, my weekend, which is weekdays.
Yeah.
And I went out to the shooting range. I'm like, that's relaxing or peaceful for you?
Absolutely.
I was like, yeah, just because something makes a bang noise every once in a while, it's like, yeah, but I'm out there and talking to people. I'm, practicing. I'm focused. Like, there's a lot to it. So yeah.
We call it group therapy, and it's often counterintuitive, but we actually, as part of what I do the CR64 rifle craft thing for veterans, I'll get guys out there, and even active duty guys, and I'll teach them model this behavior. It's good to get out to the range, get in behind the scope, in my case, or sights on a pistol. It's the same thing. And for 1 to 2 to 4 to 8 hours, you're not thinking, you're training your brain to think of something other, just to give yourself a break. Still got to go and deal with that stuff afterwards. But I call it golf for grown-ups.
Yeah.
It's the same thing. I hated golf, but I call it group therapy, and getting out behind a rifle with your peers is, to me, it has almost more importance than just maintaining your marksmanship abilities, which are obviously an important job skill in both areas. But the mental management that I preach and teach, it's not just good therapy for me or for the guys who are already trained and experienced, but that's what the Army had me. Like, they don't need me to go and teach a guy to press trigger. like I say, it's not hard. But what I can do is I can talk to these guys and model and explain behavior, habits, and attitudes that will not only make them better snipers, but will improve their life now and after, and try and prevent, and just model behavior talking about it.
Yeah.
It just helps.
So coming up on almost 2 hours. I wanted to make sure we cover. Is there anything we missed that you had on your list that you want to get to?
No, man. Just like we talked earlier, it's easy to say we stand on the shoulders of giants, but I want to reiterate that any success I've had has been because of the people that have invested in me and that I've taken the time and energy to learn from. Mm-hmm. And that includes right from today.
And to pass it on. Keep passing it on.
Yeah, absolutely.
All right. Well, I want to say thanks for coming in again, and kind of on short notice, but thanks again. And I hope to have a few more guys in and see if we can get them to talk about their experiences. And I think it's kind of good to get it out there. I hope it helps. And for other people listening, I hope it helps them. Absolutely.
If anybody is interested in the mental management or the support element of it, you can reach me at Sierra, then the number 64 Riflecraft. So Sierra 64 Riflecraft at gmail.com. And more than happy to do what we can when we can for anybody who needs it. Great. And I'll put those links on the episode when it goes out too. So they're also on the episode that went out today, like the broader one that we talked about with you. So yeah, they're available. Excellent. Okay. Great. Okay. Thank you. Thank you.